After 3 races on the Bristol dirt track, it's time to ask ourselves, should it stay or should it go? We're on a roll with races ending under yellow or in an overtime restart, but I do not think that would have changed the outcome of this race. Finally, though, a dirt veteran got it done at Bristol Dirt, capturing his 5th Cup Series win. It's Christopher Bell. He led 100 laps of the event, and with this win since 2021, he becomes the winningest driver at Joe Gibbs Racing. Think about that for a second. That is pretty insane. For real, I said this last week, I think, or at least the week before, but he is clearly the best driver at that organization right now. Quite possibly the best and most consistent driver at Toyota. I know Tyler Reddick has a win as well. He had a rough start to the season. I think Bell has been the most consistent though, but he's going to have to fight with Reddick for that title. So in my mind, there's going to have to be a tiebreaker between the two. I think that they're going to be to that battle back and forth all year long. And speaking of Tyler Reddick, he finished in the 2nd position. At least he didn't get wiped out by another driver this year, so that's a positive for him in that team. Then we had Austin Dillon in 3rd, Stenhouse 4th, Briscoe 5th, Haley 6th, Truex 7th, Gilliland 8th, 9th Harvick, and 10th McDowell. Impressive runs from Austin Dillon, Daniel Suarez, Justin Haley, Todd Gilliland, and Michael McDowell, the Front Row Motorsports duo, doing an excellent job again this weekend. So maybe we're learning that their forte isn't just maybe super speedways now, road courses. We also have them doing well on the dirt. So really good progress from that team. And then also Kevin Harvick. I don't know how he got a top 10 finish the entire day on Sunday. He was racing way outside the top 10, and I write notes during the race. And during this race, I had written down, wow, the first weekend that we've had this season where Kevin Harvick isn't a factor. And then, of course, being the closer, he becomes a factor at the end. So really solid day for him. Unfortunately, for the rest of the SHR camp, things pretty much just went wrong, even near the end. Eric Almirola had some issues. We're going to talk about Ryan Preece in a second, but we got to get to this whole thing with Chase Briscoe. If you remember last year, he was in a wreck that he self-inflicted with him and Tyler Reddick trying to race it out for the win. Same type of thing happened this year, except as you can see by your results, Chase Briscoe was able to finish in the 5th position, but he was involved in spinning out Ryan Blaney. I think Briscoe was just trying to get around for some track position, and it clearly did not work out. Ryan Blaney probably was on track to be in the 3rd place, finish in 3rd place. Chase Briscoe says that Ryan Blaney probably could have won the race if it wasn't for his, quote, dumb mistake. 2 years in a row is what he talked about after the race. He also said that he thinks that there might be payback on the way, so something to keep in mind. Something else to talk about too, some of the calls for these cautions was interesting this weekend. I don't know what you think about this, you can comment it below, but there were some individual single car cautions that maybe were thrown prematurely, some of them rightfully so, but this one with Ryan Blaney, I'll play the video again for you all, but Ryan Blaney is spinning like in the middle of the field, pretty much in front of the field, and we don't call a caution, so that's something very interesting too. I also am aware that we've had a lot of late race cautions that have caused a lot of overtimes, lots of frustration, so I don't know why this wasn't a caution compared to everything else, but also something to kind of take a look at as well from this weekend. I told you we were going to get back to Ryan Preece. Also, if you look at the results, you will see that Kyle Larson did not finish this race, but with 75 to go, both of them got into each other. It looks like Larson got a bit loose and then came down on the track and hit Preece, and then Preece turns back up and to hit Larson, as Larson seems to come back down, and it just kind of goes back and forth. I'm not really sure who instigated what. It also kind of looks like maybe Preece got loose and got up into Larson to start this whole thing. And after the race, Preece said, hey, he did get loose. He was trying to run the high line, wasn't able to make it stick, and like I said, this ended Larson's day. If you remember earlier in the race, Larson ran Preece up into the wall, and Preece was running in the top 5, top 10 all day. He was my race-winning pick, and it was just a gut feeling. I picked this way before we had the heats and everything like that, so I was feeling really good about this pick. I was feeling really, really smart. And then he got into the wall, and Preece just wasn't totally able to recover, and he also had a spin as well, a single car spin. So that was also very unfortunate. But when that happened, Ryan Preece said, after all this, game over is the phrase that he used. And after the race, he then later clarified, saying the use of the phrase game over was, I'm tired of lifting for guys. I am tired of not basically getting the respective space that I've given others. So he was just kind of sick of how he was being raced. So from Ryan Preece, the whole incident with 75 to go was just him getting loose, did not admit intent at all, and the use of the phrase game over was just him really getting sick of lifting for other guys. So that's what we have from Ryan Preece. Kyle Larson thought this was clearly payback in his post-race interviews. He was clearly very frustrated as well. He said he would have thought that they could have handled this like adults, used some explicitives in his comments post-race. I understand his frustration there too, because he was on track to win this thing. The one thing that Larson made clear is that he does not think NASCAR should get involved in this. I know with the penalty with Denny Hamlin, setting prior precedent and everything like that, it's, well, is NASCAR going to intervene and fine Ryan Preece? But for me personally, there's nothing cut and dry about the situation. You could say that Ryan Preece intentionally wrecked Kyle Larson, but he didn't outright admit it. It seemed like a racing deal. They hashed it out on the track. I mean, Larson kind of instigated it earlier in the race when he pushed Preece up into the wall. So I think it's cut and dry. I don't think NASCAR needs to intervene. I think Larson is right in that. So we'll see if things moving forward kind of, if there's payback in the air again from Larson to Preece, and this just goes back and forth. I mean, gosh, too bad we're not going to go to a short track next week that's really known for its rivalries and just hashing out beef. Oh wait, we are. We're going to go to Martinsville next week. So that should be fun, and especially Briscoe, Ryan Blaney. There's going to be a lot of frustration. I honestly think the scheduling of the short tracks, like 3 in a row, clever on NASCAR's part. I really think it's clever because you're going to get a lot of tension, a lot of storylines built that way. And then after this, next week at Martinsville, we're going to go to Talladega. So kudos to NASCAR for the scheduling. I think it's really exciting. We have our results. We have the beef kind of hashed out. Now let's go into our points. And yet again, deja vu from the prior week. Things were shaken up even before we got into the Bristol race weekend. If you remember, the 24 and 48 were taken to the R&D Center following the Richmond race. And NASCAR found things that they did not like: manipulation or an issue with the greenhouse areas of the car. This would be the windshield wiper in the windshield. And just as Hendrick Motorsports had gotten their points back after the appeal from the Atlanta race, the 24 and 48 cars were fined 60 points, 5 playoff points, and the interim crew chiefs were fined $75,000. If you remember, they still don't have their normal crew chiefs from the penalty at Atlanta. That penalty was upheld with a 4-race suspension for the crew chiefs. So now those 2 cars have to find new crew chiefs going into the Martinsville and then Talladega weekend. So we're having backups to the backups for the crew chiefs for the 24 and 48. Not good. It dropped them in the playoff standings as well. And with all the craziness of these appeals, NASCAR has also updated their rulebook saying that the appeals panel cannot completely wipe out any penalty that NASCAR hands them, but they can kind of change the penalty within a certain range. So you can't totally eliminate a points penalty, but you can say, you know what, you're still getting a points penalty, but you only have to give us 75 points instead of 25, kind of like what they did with colleagues. So that's going to be the rule in the NASCAR rulebook moving forward if penalties are given and if teams or drivers choose to go to the appeals panel. With all of this happening and that colleague penalty, we talked about this last week, NASCAR is also being more transparent and is going to display confiscated parts at the track so these teams can kind of see, what was called out. And also a lot of people are asking if these appeals panels situations can be aired live so everyone can watch, so we can see the whole appeals process and understand what went wrong. Because again, the difference between the Haley penalty and the Hendrick penalty was really bizarre. As far as we knew, that they were penalized for the same exact thing, but they were reprimanded differently. So we're all asking for more transparency. I think that's needed in the future, and NASCAR is taking a step towards that by displaying the parts. But besides that, let's take a look, or let's at least talk about the playoff standings before we went into Bristol Dirt and what they look like now. So before heading into Bristol Dirt, Alex Bowman was first in points, and then with this penalty, he dropped to 7th. William Byron was 4th in points, then he dropped to 14th. Now, if we look at the playoff grid, you'll see that Byron is really not affected because he has the 2 wins. He's sitting at the top of this playoff grid. Then we have Bell, Larson, Reddick, Busch, Logano. He did not finish this race, so he moved down a little bit. Then Stenhouse in 7th. And then Alex Bowman, instead of being first in those playoff points, he's now 13th in this playoff grid. And right around the cutoff line, we have Buescher above it by 1 and McDowell -1. Ty Gibbs -9. Again, still very early on in the season, but I like to look at these playoff points to see who's really hot right now, who's not. And then when we go into the middle of the season, when we get closer to the playoffs, it's going to be interesting to see how things shake up. Something I have to draw your attention to, we still have parity, 7 different winners in 8 races going into Martinsville. Will we have another? I'm not sure. I'm already like projecting my picks ahead, my race winning picks, but I think maybe RFK has a decent shot at winning, potentially. I don't know. That's just an early thought, but I think we could maybe get another new winner going into Martinsville, but that is looking way ahead. But I like that the parity is continuing. It makes things interesting, and it makes these playoff grids very interesting to look at, seeing who's already locked into that round of 16. We preview the points and the results. Now it's time to go into our race rating and getting into that conversation. Should Bristol Dirt stay or should it go? And with this race, part of me hates to say it, loves to say it, because I am kind of a fan of Bristol Dirt. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This race was great. And if you said it wasn't, I don't know if it's just out of malice or spite for this idea in general, but the racing was fun. The track conditions were great. So kudos to NASCAR and all of those who prepare the track, because nothing was too damp. We didn't have mud caking on the grill like we had last year and the year prior. This was fantastic. So again, major props to those folks. And the racing overall was really fun to watch. Yes, the leader got away maybe some of the time, but there was always a way to battle back to the first position to take over the leader. And then everything from third on back was really competitive to watch. And sure, we had a few weird cautions and single car spins that got a little annoying, but compared to what we've seen in the past at this track, I don't really think that's huge cause for concern. Something else we got to talk about too is the attendance at this race. One of my buddies who was at the track took these pictures, and everything looks kind of halfway full. And again, I'm not good at percentages or guessing out percentages here, but I guess take a look for yourself if you're listening to this show. For me, it looks about 50% full. And of course, you're going to get that on a holiday weekend like Easter. Everyone likes to spend it with their families, maybe spend it at church. Unlike a holiday like 4th of July, where, it's kind of the bread and butter of NASCAR. You pop open a beer and you celebrate at the races. So for me, if we're going to do a race like this again, even if it's just on dirt, maybe do it like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or just Friday, Saturday event, just because I think having it on Easter Sunday is going to hurt your attendance. But with the matter of Bristol Dirt, I like this track. I think it's fun. But I also like the Bristol Concrete track much, much better than I think I like the dirt. I know the attendance has not been great the past few years when we've had the spring concrete race at Bristol. I know. But if we're going to do a dirt race, do it on an actual dirt track. Also gets that track more exposure. And I think maybe we're fine just racing on dirt. I know it's a controversial opinion, but it's been fun. The NASCAR's figured it out. The track has figured it out. The drivers, love it or hate it, they're figuring it out. So for keeping the dirt racing, fine. Just maybe don't keep it on Bristol, move it to somewhere else, and change the date to a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or just a Friday, Saturday event. But like I said, this race was fun. I gotta give this one... I debated this in my head. I think I'm going to give it an 83%. I know I was hyping this up to be a 90 or above, but because it's still the dirt race feel, attendance was low, there was a single car spins, it was fantastic racing, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I can't go above an 83, so that's going to be my race rating, much better than what it was last year and the first year we went to Bristol, so I consider this redemption kind of for Bristol Dirt, kind of. I asked you all to share your opinions on social media, and we commented back and forth with each other, so if you want to have that type of interaction with me and the A2YL crew, make sure to follow us on our social media pages @_TaylorKitchen_ on Twitter and TikTok, and then @AboveTheYellowLine on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And for more NASCAR news, follow TobyChristieCom on all social media platforms. If you're looking for other ways to get in on the conversation with us, we have a live stream happening Thursday night. We're going to be with the entire A2YL crew, just kind of closing out Bristol Dirt, talking about the latest NASCAR news and looking ahead to what is next at Martinsville. So make sure to follow our social media pages to get updates on that as well. But that is it. Thank you all for the support, and until next time, I'll see ya. Want to watch more awesome NASCAR content? Make sure to watch the videos right here and click the link on the screen.